Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the most educated podcast on Twitch. We even have a doctor. Welcome to Mass Historia episode. Oh, I didn't fade the thing. It's just blank. It was just blank.
Yay!
Yeah. Witless, thank you very much for that clap. But yeah, so welcome to episode number 4 of Mass Historia. This is the Valentine's Day Fact Massacre. And if you'll all excuse me for just a second, I've been waiting to hit a button here. I gotta do a little switchy thing, and then we will switch right back to the history cast. There we go. For some reason, the main screen was broken, and now it's fixed, and I don't know what was going on, but it's fixed. So, I know exactly what's going on, but that's not the point of this podcast. So, joining me once again for an evening of learnedness, which I've got a thing about learnedness here very soon, are Tim and Dr. Tom. Tim, how is your week heading through?
Some good, some bad.
Yeah?
Yeah, just got done taking a midterm today, and don't think I did as well as I would like on it.
Well, I'm sure you nailed it. You just don't even know. Andrew Wilson is...
No, I'm pretty sure I know.
On your mug, Dr. Tom.
I started cracking up while Tim was talking about the midterm, and then I was muted, but I was like, wait, I'm not laughing at your midterm, Tim. I'm laughing at Andy's marveling at my mug.
Right. Willis says we can't hear Tom. Oh, okay, there we go. It's just because Tom wasn't...
Yeah, I
anything,
unmuted
right?
there.
Okay. I was told that on one of my previous casts, there was a little bit of a sound issue. Gamer News Party with 5 months of subscription. This is like ancient heavy metal, right? Yeah. Full.
Fun story, I have been to the St. Valentine's Massacre wall in the Mob Museum.
That's fantastic. We actually
That's super cool.
may or may not talk about that tonight. Who knows? This is, as I said, the St. Valentine's Fact Massacre. So we're going to cover a lot of shit. First thing we're going to cover...
Wait, are we massacring facts or massacring people with facts?
Massacring people with facts.
Perfect.
Right?
I like killing people.
We've got our first Mass Historia t-shirt ready. If you go to our merch store, which you can get to from this link I'm going to add in chat, we have the new "If not for the brave actions of the heroic men of the 7th Heavy Battery of the Royal Australian Artillery, we would all be speaking emu today" t-shirt. with the high resolution version of the image that I made for the end of the emu show. So that's going to be now awesome. And we're about to have a Get Learnt Up t-shirt coming, which I'm pretty excited
That's
about,
fantastic.
right?
Get learned.
Exactly. It's a busy Thursday night. Get learnt up, right? So all right. So Valentine's Day Fact Massacre, you say? Why doesn't it say that in the Twitch channel below? Well, why does it say Factacre? Because apparently the word massacre is banned on Twitch titles. Which, very strange, especially if you have an educational show that happens to involve things that happened in the world. But, yeah. To get started with today's show, Tim, Dr. Tom, I'm going to cover something with you. We have a content warning.
Uh-oh.
This is an educational stream. We are covering historic events like mythology and history. And if you have a problem with things that happened in history and dislike talking about violence, nudity, and other not very PC topics, get gone, because this ain't the show for you, Chief.
Yeah, history's full of a lot of real ultra-violence.
Right?
Not just regular violence.
Yeah, exactly.
History is full of people,
Right.
and
Yeah.
people
Are full of
sometimes
vocal
get naked, sometimes hurt each other, and sometimes do things that aren't very PC.
I
Right.
thought you were gonna say sometimes do both at the same time.
Yep, that's very true. All right. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about the origins of Valentine's Day. Where did Valentine's Day come from? And what I want to ask you guys is, we take stock right now on everybody who's in chat, and even we'll talk to everybody in chat, and then you guys. Do you guys know where Valentine's Day originates? And if not, would you care to wager a guess? If you do know where it comes from, don't reveal it yet till next slide, because we'll be talking about it. But if you and if the answer is from Saint Valentine's, you are wrong. So
I'm gonna go with my. I don't know. My guess is gonna be a dude named Valentine killed a whole shitload of people. Like,
okay.
like an unbelievable, miraculous number of like thousands of. Okay, miraculous. Because whether it's a miracle or an atrocity depends on your perspective.
Right.
But an absolutely flabbergasting number of people.
All right, Tim. Do you know? Do you think you know? Do you want to?
I think I know, so I'm not gonna go with that.
Okay.
So I think I'm just gonna go with Mike Tyson karate chopped a unicorn in the face.
You are
And now we
closer
have
than
Valentine's
Tom.
Day.
You are closer than Tom. I'm going to let you know.
How?
Because Mike Tyson, bro.
How is that even fucking possible?
It was the unicorn part that makes him closer. But
Wait, what?
Gamer News Party says Hallmark made it, right? Or some diamond company or some shit. Nope. It's way older than all of this. The crude and honest answer is drunken Roman sacrifice orgies meant to increase the fertility of women through obvious scientific methods. And the word obvious scientific methods is used very loosely.
As a doctor, I can tell you this is peer-reviewed science. Thank you.
Right? The event, I don't know if you guys noticed, you'll see this a lot. Right here is a censorship bar that I have added.
There's some dingles.
You will see a lot of those tonight. So what it was originally called was the Feast of Lupercalia. And over 3 days, February 13th... What? Go ahead.
I was gonna say, that makes me think of like Lupercalia, and it's like the god of lubrication.
Right? Over 3 days, February 13th, 14th, and 15th, every year, revelers from all over the Roman Empire would celebrate the Feast of Lupercalia through a ruckus debacle where priests would ritualistically sacrifice 2 goats and a puppy. The puppy part is very specific. I did a lot of research into this. Yes. So, wait, what, you may ask?
Yeah.
We're barely into this episode, and now we've already started talking about killing puppies. What has this podcast become? It's only just begun, dear viewers. I am sorry.
Yes.
Buckle up. And no, not goats okay, because Sergeant Bill.
Right?
No, gamer.
Goldilocks, welcome to the stream. The Phantom Hydra, welcome to the stream. So, what did I walk into? We're talking about the origins of Valentine's Day. Okay, so step 1, you have a pile of dead bodies. Well, I don't know what happened. Just a sec. Where did my notes on the puppy murder go? Well, okay, the notes for the puppy murder didn't seem to make it. But so the Romans inherited the practice of sacrificing puppies specifically from the Greeks. The Greeks used to use puppies as some sort of spiritual Febreze. if you had a problem with a spirit or a bad thing happened here, sacrifice a puppy. I mean, it was because of the fact that they considered puppies to be small, virtuous, pure animals. Even more pure than, say, like a white sheep or a small baby goat or anything like that. You would just sacrifice a puppy, and bam, spiritual problems gone. This was ancient times. It was a different place.
I hate you. You know my real dad.
So, Golding Glock says, because bad spirits need puppies too. So
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole point behind it, is when you've got some otherworldly being making shit terrible for you, you just give them a puppy.
right.
And that makes their life better, making your life better, and the only way to give that otherworldly spirit a puppy is to kill a puppy.
Yep.
Doing the Lord's work.
So step 1 is done. We now have a pile of dead animals.
Yeah.
On to the next stage. After the sacrifices, you've got to do something with all that blood and viscera.
True do.
So, 2 local boys, the highest standing, were brought into the ritual site. It was specifically 2 boys, and specifically the 2 of highest standing. Nobles if available, or whoever was highborn, or considered highborn in the area, like a mayor's son, or the wealthiest,
a doctor.
right? Or the doctor's son, or the wealthiest merchant's son, or whatever. The priests, known as the Lupercalia, would then break out the knives. Perfect mix. Priest, children, blood, and knives. And I bet you know where this is going.
It's great.
I don't want to do this podcast anymore.
Anyone care to guess where they're going with this? Tim, what's your first instinct?
My first instinct was circumcision.
Oh, it's, neat. How about you, Tom? Where's your first instinct? Blood, knives, boys.
To curl up and cry. I'm gonna go with something like some kind of like bloodletting or blood mixing ritual, like with the.
Right.
I don't know.
I mean, these
blood
things.
or something like that.
It seems like that's where they would go, but wrong. The priests would then dip the knives in the blood and press them gently onto the foreheads of the boys and leave a knife-shaped blood print on them. Afterwards, they would take the goat's hides and dip them in milk. The hides would then be placed upon the boys' heads. Then, the boys were expected to fake laughter hard. And then... right. Yeah, exactly.
Like that.
They're just dripping with blood and milk, standing amongst a pile of sacrificed puppy. And then they had to fake laughter.
And 2 goats.
Right? Because then
Can't forget the goats.
the festivities could begin. That was the marking of the beginning of the festivities. Phantom
That's
Hydra
awkward.
says, only time I would have been happy to be poor and or female in the old-timey days. Just wait. Because they get involved too. So, you guys remember that pile of dead bodies I've mentioned once or twice, right?
Yeah.
Those were not going to go to waste. The Lupercalia would then craft the skins of these animals into what were referred to in every book that I looked into as leather thongs. Now, not
Awkward.
a thong that you wear as a piece of clothing,
Footwear?
Uh-huh.
but like a whip.
Let me see.
Oh.
Right.
Okay.
The only problem is, this all happened in one day.
Right.
You
That's a shitty whip.
cannot cure animal hides into leather in a day.
Sure
So
can.
you're just getting like flailed on with bloody animal hunks?
Right.
Yeah, with
Technically-
fresh skin.
Technically uncured hide of animals is not leather. So, these should be more appropriately called disgusting skin whips instead of leather thongs. And as a responsible history podcast, we shall not be referring to them as leather thongs for the remainder of this show.
We're just gonna call them disgusting skin whips.
Sounds about right.
I've got a few names. So,
Oh God!
according to the priests, these whips were now supercharged with magical sexual energy or something.
So let me get this straight.
Can we go back to World War II animals,
We-
please?
We killed 2 goats
Yep.
and a puppy.
Mhm.
We then stuck a knife in the blood, stirred it around a little bit,
Right.
put a knife imprint on a boy's forehead,
Pair of young lads' heads, yes.
and then made them make laugh. And the act of doing all of that
Yep.
has now infused our disgusting flesh whips
Mm-hmm.
with sexual potency.
Right.
All right, I'm just making sure I'm caught up.
And the puppy is also, just as a clarifying point, the puppy isn't actually necessary for the sexual energy. It's just to clear out all of the other bad mojo.
Right.
Correct.
The Greeks did so much puppy sacrifice that they had a word for it. It roughly translates to purification via puppy. And
I hate the Greeks.
Trial by puppy!
There was a scholar in the 1500s that was researching ancient Greeks, and he coined the term puprification.
So, as a point of interest, my very lovely beloved wife, who's sitting right next to me, is half Greek, quarter, and I just yelled, "I hate Greeks."
We are a terrible person.
Your host is part Greek.
Yes, I am very Greek. My real father, as far as I know, was very Greek. So
I feel the need to point out that my recap, the reason I was recapping is because I missed something and you missed me missing something, but Vinoth didn't, and it's the goat hide dipped in milk and then put on your forehead.
Right.
Doesn't work without that.
Yep. That's how you get the magical sexual energy. So
Right.
They intended
Sex magic.
They intended to make full maximum use out of these new tools. Right?
Wait, the boys?
No, the disgusting
priests.
flesh whips.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is where the real fun for the attendees began.
With the flesh whipping?
Right. The men of high standing, the local elite, would then strip
The
down...
parents of the boys.
Well, or whoever, certain merchants, anybody who was like senators or, people who were influential in the town or like captain of the guard or whatever, anybody who had a title for any reason would then strip down to full naked.
Yeah, gets up.
Each of them was issued one of these terrible skin whips. And they were fully oiled up.
Yep. When in Rome.
So then they started throwing cigarettes and whiskey to Wojciech.
Right, exactly. The elite, now slippery as all hell, then set loose upon the town to begin their hallowed work.
Run around like a grease pig, beating people with a hunk of goat.
Udo, that was some amazing wordsmithing right there. I want you to know that.
That was some vile wordsmithing.
This entire episode, the Phantom Hydra says worst bedtime story.
And they are not wrong.
Definitely not wrong. So, good and oily, the men were then sent to run around the village or town, hitting people with the sloppy beast flails.
Yeah, get some.
Gonna be okay, Tom?
At this point, I'm not even laughing at the content. I'm laughing at Tom.
Everything is terrible, and I love it.
So, in particular, they were out there to hunt women. They were...
Yeah!
Who in turn would then pretend to run away from them. In all actuality, the women wanted to get hit with the dermal nightmare flap.
Well, yeah. They need some of that
Right?
potent sexual energy.
According to the tradition, if you got hit with the slap flap, you would then receive fertility power-ups. Right?
You're the fucking worst.
Which would then lead to you having a higher chance of carrying a child to term. This was really important because mortality rates were abysmally high.
Oh, yeah.
And miscarriages were rampant. So, this still being the Dark Ages of medicine. Sorry, Andrew Wilson, I apologize. So, this practice must have been quite a sight. This would be...
Oh, I imagine.
Right? A bunch of women faking being scared and exposing themselves so that naked, oily men could efficiently whip them with greasy flesh bands. No! Don't hit me! No!
I would like to point out there's a lot of people that romanticize the birth of Western culture, Western civilization.
Right?
And then we hear stuff like this.
Right?
Well, I know. My Joy Marie's new Valentine's Day tradition.
Right?
Sloppy beast flails.
Fun fact for everybody. Those skin whips, by the way, were named February, long before the month February had its name. That means that it's possible that the name of the month of February is named after these holy magic squishy skin flails that make you more pregnanter, due to the fact that this festival occurred during that month.
Well, thank God it's the shortest month of the year.
Right, exactly. Just February 1st comes along. Ah, good old skin flip month.
I don't know how I feel about having my birthday in February anymore.
Right?
Sloppy beast flail-uary.
We could be Flapuary.
Wait. Oh, God, no. We make jokes that my dog is flappy.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
All right,
My poor baby.
Now, attentive listeners might think that we have moved on from the piles of murdered and skinned goats and puppies.
Of
Dear
course not.
listeners, we are not about to get into, we're just about to get into the most disappointing part of the Feast of Lupercalia.
Ow!
So, Lupercalia also involved a feast. Although, it's not the festival attendees that we're going to eat. At least...
Did they eat puppies?
Well, at least not much. And definitely not anything that we would consider quality. Even Roman poetry calls the Feast of Lupercalia scanty. And with good cause, because the priests would then put the entrails of the goats, specifically I did not find any mention of puppy entrails, but goat entrails, right? Were then put on willow spits, cooked up, and fed to the small crowd of people who had gathered around the sacrifice site. Revelers would then burn salt cakes, also known as mola salsa, which sounds Spanish, but is not in any way, shape, or form. Bola salsa is actually just spelt flour, water, and salt, pressed into small biscuits, and then burned in sacrificial incense burners called tirabulums.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible. They didn't eat them. They just made them and burned them. Because the gods would feast tonight.
On their shitty
On the
salt
terrible
biscuit.
nightmare food that we don't want to eat.
Right. But that was almost the entirety of the feast. A tiny bit of goat entrail on a stick, some burned cakes.
That they didn't eat.
Well, right. And none of that may seem particularly appealing, which is probably why the Romans served one more dish. Copious amounts of alcohol.
Yep. Not a Roman party without wine.
For the rest of the weekend, the people of Rome would be drunk out of their gourds.
So I have a quick question before
Right.
we move on from this slide.
Yeah.
One, why is Pan up in the upper right-hand corner, staring at a bunch of mostly naked men?
That's what Pan do.
Also, is that a dog or a pig with... I can't tell if it's babies or smaller dog or pig attached to its
So,
teats.
that technically is the story of Remus and Ramus, who was suckled by the wolf of something. I cannot remember, but that imagery right there
That makes sense.
is something that is kind of related. We didn't cover it. It's just a thing. But yeah. That's Pan, Remus, Ramus, and the Feast of Lupercalia. But yeah. My research has led me to find that mola salsa, or the small salty pancakes, are possibly an origin of the Roman Catholic communion wafers.
Oh my god, no.
I could see that.
Right?
I could definitely see that.
It's a possibility. There are a couple of people who agree with it. There are a couple of people who don't. So it's hard to find exactly what's true there. But and that time frame, it would have been really hard to trace back something like that.
Yeah.
But
Will you send me that picture?
yeah,
I need this picture. I
made this with a generation. I made this on a generator today. But as you will see, many parts of the Roman traditions of Lupercalia have a place in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But they get culturally appropriated to heck and back in
Too bad they got rid of
right.
the animal flail. Just
Right.
a damn shame.
in almost unrecognizable forms, which is, I'm not sure if this is good or bad, because I'm not sure if Lupercalia cards would do so well at Hallmark. So,
Yeah, probably not.
I'd
Which
love
is-
one.
which is why I made this image so that you guys could see. Right? All right. Now that everyone at the feast is good and trashed and all sorts of fertile, the event of the other events of the festivity begin.
Is it time for the orgy?
Almost,
Getting there.
right?
We're not quite there yet.
Instead of handing out candy or greeting cards, they just skip to the chase. Like some sort of ancient, creepy version of Tinder, eligible young women would then, hoping to get pregnant, would write their names on clay tablets and place the tablets into large jars or vases, from which men would draw a name. For the rest of the festival, the couples would be hooked up for 3 days. And according to some sources, some places even had them hook up for a whole year.
It's the longest blind date ever.
Right. And they weren't dating.
Right.
They were straight
doinking.
down to getting busy. Because this is all to get pregnant, right? So.
Yep.
Phantom Hydra says this is literally like a swingers party, but more intense.
It's got a lot more religion involved.
Right? Fun
I don't know what
fact,
kind of tame ass swinger parties you've been to, Hydra.
right? When Mark Antony put a wreath on Caesar's head, it was offered to and offered him the throne. It wasn't just any day that happened. It was Lupercalia. History specifically states that Caesar was watching the festivities when it happened. Now, people gloss over all of this. That when they just say that they mention stuff about, like, if you go through Caesar's Wikipedia page, it does say that he, got it. He was offered the wreath and offered the throne, and it was during Lupercalia. But they seem to forget to mention that he wasn't watching people eat. We're specifically told that he was watching naked, oily young men run down the streets when Mark Antony came over him to offer him the throne. Unlike Caesar, though, Mark Antony wasn't just a spectator. He was participating. He was described as one of the runners in the sacred race, which means that he didn't walk over to Julius Caesar wearing a tunic. He walked over completely naked, holding a shaggy animal whip in one hand and a laurel wreath in the other. So Caesar was crowned by a naked oily man.
I'd just like to say it again. Birthplace of Western civilization.
Right?
Just pointing it out.
So, why were they all naked, you might ask?
Why are they fucking up Pan?
Right. That's almost Pan. It's pretty close.
Oh, alright.
Right. So, like any good festival, Lupercalia had its classic stories. One of the classic Lupercalia stories was of Faunus, which was he was called, which was mentioned as possibly a tale full of sexual assault, cross-dressing, and wacky gods. In ancient Rome, Faunus was the horned god of the forest, plains, and fields. Faunus saw Hercules walking with his mistress and declared, "She will be my passion." But that doesn't mean that he's going to write her a love note and ask her on a date. Instead, he plans on waiting till she's asleep.
Sloppy beast flail!
Right? Sneaking into her house and going wild. Faunus snuck into the girl's home, and Faunus just started groping the mound that looked like her clothes. She felt something strange and recoiled, and as it was described, Faunus was shocked as someone who would draw back their foot upon seeing a snake, which is more or less what Faunus realized he was grabbing. Faunus was unaware that the young woman had covered Hercules with her clothes before she went to sleep. So, Hercules got up, Faunus fell down, and everyone realized that Faunus was trying to sexually assault Hercules' mistress. Hercules then laughed, as did everyone else lying there, or seeing him lie there, and the girl laughed as well, according to the tradition.
Oh, Faunus.
Right? And due to that story, men ran naked in Lupercalia to honor Faunus' failed sexual assault, because the god hates clothes that trick the eyes and calls the naked to his rights.
They were...
They were naked, so
they
didn't
were running
accidentally
to
grab a
honor
dingle. Yeah.
Sexual assault.
Pretty much. I mean, you boil it down. You boil down a lot of history, and it ends up real fucked up.
That's very true.
Right?
Man, humans suck.
Right? But this story does not age well into current day.
Right.
This picture here is a picture of that story. That is Faunus lying on the ground right after he grabbed a dingle. So F would kill. Welcome to the stream. All right.
What a time to come in.
Right? So finally, the best part of Lupercalia gets to begin. And by my opinion...
The orgy!
Well, no, the orgies they're kind of orgying already. They're all hooked up, right? And they're doing whatever they gotta do. But this is by far my favorite part. And that is the airing of grievances.
What?
Drunk, naked,
What?
and... Yes. Drunk, naked, and horny, the people of the festival would break into filthy, vulgar songs that described every bad thing that their neighbors had done. If you got
That's amazing.
Right? If you had an affair or got caught at a brothel, your neighbors would come out on Lupercalia and sing a song about your sescapades for everyone to hear.
Drunken public shaming.
Right?
Encouraged drunken public shaming.
Drunken public, naked, horny shaming.
Right? It gets... the idea was to shame people into good behavior. So, by the 5th century AD, as far as the Pope was concerned, the songs from Lupercalia tended to come across more as celebrations of what everybody was doing than really criticisms of what everybody was
Public
doing.
shame.
My neighbor
Right.
had 4 women over last night. Fucking legend!
Right, exactly. Gay Reduce Party says, this is like an awful holiday that I want back. Right?
Like, I'm not going to do it for my birthday this year, but maybe for my birthday next year, I'm going to have to bring specific people just so we can start this tradition.
Okay, as long as we skip the puppy killing.
Right.
No, just the public shaming part.
Okay.
Yeah,
This
we'll
person
just,
did this thing and laugh at him for it.
we'll just do the
Dude,
airing
make
of
some, like,
grievances.
Make some, like, goat curry.
You have to sing a song, though. You just have to
That's
sing a
fine.
real good song. Otherwise, it's
You can
not
rap
good.
if you want.
Right, exactly.
I sing a mean song.
By the 5th century AD, as far as the Pope was concerned, these weren't very good for what he had planned. When they got the chance
No
to talk
shit.
about what their neighbors were up to, the Romans apparently got a bit carried away, which meant it was time for the church to step in and fix Lupercalia.
Church ruins everything.
Right? So, Pope Gelasius I muddled things in the 5th century by combining St. Valentine's Day with Lupercalia. And this was likely to do away with all of the naked skin whipping and drunken orgies, because, God and stuff.
What did Valentine do that could possibly be tied in with the naked, the fleshy, the squishy beast flails and the
Right.
naked orgy
We'll get into that.
The entire point is
and the festival,
superseding.
the festival
the,
of sexual assault?
Yeah, the entire point is superseding and getting rid of the other festival in exchange for this other one.
Right?
Okay, I figured they would like tie it together somehow.
No, they
Okay, thank God.
not
Thank
really.
Right. So at that point, St. Valentine's Day was nothing to them. It was just the day that St. Valentine died, which we will learn a lot about St. Valentine here in a minute. But it wasn't really a celebration at that time, but since people were already celebrating something, they just kind of put this on top and said, hey, let's do this, right? So, Gelasius, after a long contest of wills, finally suppressed the ancient Roman festival of Lupercalia, which had persisted for several generations among the nominally Christian population. Gelasius had one really big problem with Lupercalia, and that was, you're not going to guess this at all,
Sloppy beast flails.
right? Nope, he seemed to be okay with those, other than the fact that, gotta move on from it, or whatever.
I'm guessing at the time it's not the rampant sexuality.
He
Of the
really
festival.
liked dogs.
I'm guessing it's for 3 days they weren't being Christian.
They cramped his style. So,
What?
Lupercalia was overwhelmingly popular. Way more popular than the main Christian festival in February, which was the Feast of Purification of Virgin Mary, also known as Candlemas. A commemoration of the Holy Family's fulfillment of the ceremonial obligations required by Mosaic law after the birth of a firstborn son. I fucked that one up really good because I put a bunch of spit in my mouth. I don't know how I did that, but
Well done.
Anyway, this was observed 40 days after Christmas, the 2nd of February. So, in order to Christify up Lupercalia, he combined it with St. Valentine's Day, which was just the day meant to celebrate dear St. Valentine, who was possibly somebody else, or maybe several somebodies, as we're just about to learn. So, this is St. Valentine, according to...
No, that is a painting of St. Valentine.
Right. According to the chronicles in which they keep the sainthoods, right? Valentine was known to be a real person who died around AD 2070. Or 270. 270, not 2070. 270. However, his true identity is questioned as early as 496 by Pope Gelasius, who referred to the martyr and his acts as being only known to God. So at that point, people had basically forgotten who this guy was, right?
Oh my god.
And they had a saint. They couldn't verify who he was before, but they just said, yeah, whatever, we understand. It's the meaning behind the season, right? So Valentine, or Valentius, as he was known, was a leader in the church and lived in the Roman Empire in the 3rd century. However, there are 3 Valentines who are noted as having lived in the late 3rd century during Emperor Claudius II's reign. One was a priest in Rome, the other was the bishop of Interama, modern Terni, Italy, and the third was a martyr in a Roman province in Africa. Some believe that the martyrdom of all 3 men, named Valentius, occurred on February 14th. Many scholars believe that 2 of them, the priest in Rome and the bishop in Interamna, were the same, suggesting that the bishop of Interamna was a Roman priest who became bishop and was sentenced there and brought to Rome for execution. Sources indicate that Emperor Claudius II had at least one of the Valentines executed for marrying Roman soldiers, which defied one of his orders. See, Claudius was having difficulty getting soldiers recruited into the Roman army. He thought that it was because the men were unwilling to leave their loved ones, because soldiers were required to fight for 25 years. Therefore, in order to solve this issue, instead of lowering the term for how long soldiers had to fight, he just banned marriage.
So,
let's make it shittier! That'll get everybody to join!
You were expected to do civil service for 25 years?
If you joined to be a soldier, you had to go for 25 years.
The average life expectancy was like 36.
Right? I think it was a little bit higher in the Roman Empire, because they had a little bit more, like the aqueducts and stuff, but...
Wow, okay.
Yep. So, therefore, Claudius banned all marriages and engagements. However, Valentius was secretly marrying couples until he was apprehended and brought before the prefect of Rome. According to one legend, Saint Valentine was once placed on house arrest. This story described him as the one who was the former bishop of Terni, and mentioned a judge named Asterius. At one point, during the house arrest, the 2 men began a discussion about their respective faiths. Asterius being a Roman, having the Roman god belief, and the priest being a Christian. Apparently, Asterius wanted to see whether Father Valentine was for real, so Asterius brought his blind daughter and asked Valentine to help her see again. Valentine obliged and magically healed the man's daughter. After Valentine placed his hands on her eyes, the girl immediately regained her sight. and thus Judge Asterius instantly converted to Christianity, became baptized, destroyed all idols that he had of supposed false gods, and more. Asterius also released all of his Christian prisoners, including Valentine. This is likely why Valentine became the patron saint of some other things that are attributed to him, which we will learn soon. So, fun fact, Valentine was the patron saint of the following things. Love and romance. A lot of us know that one. It's pretty easy. A lot of people would guess that if I was making y'all guess, right? But also greetings and youth, fainting and traveling, bees.
That's the one that I was looking forward to.
Epilepsy, and the plague.
Why do you need patron saints for epilepsy and debilitating disease?
You have no idea how hard that part was to research. I couldn't find jack about it. Like, I'm just like, patron saint of epilepsy. They're all said, it's Valentine. And I'm like, why? Why? Like, I can't Google hard enough. Why?
Right?
I did find
Why do we have a patron saint of the plague?
Right?
Of Dr. Bees!
Emperor Claudius of Rome played a pivotal role in St. Valentine's life by signing off on his execution. But can you guys guess what Claudius died of? The plague.
Syphilis.
So that is how he became the patron saint of the plague. Because if you execute him, you get plagued. So, Valentine's Day.
That's obviously what happened. He executed Valentine, then got the plague. There can be no other possible explanation.
When your girlfriends want you to, or your girlfriends, your boyfriends, whoever's making you do something important with, Valentine's Day, remind them that you are celebrating the Remembrance Day for the patron saint of the Black Plague. So,
yeah. If we go out tonight, we're gonna get the plague, honey. I'm just protecting you,
right? So some sources that I read talked about the daughter falling in love with Valentine, etc. None of them were solid sources that I usually use. So I'm mentioning it here, but we aren't going to dive into it. After being locked up for continuing to marry people after Roman Emperor Claudius II forbid it, St. Valentine was sentenced to the ultimate penalty, execution, for his crimes. Upon his arrest...
Via epilepsy.
Upon his arrest and trial, he tried to persuade Claudius II to become a Christian. This enraged the emperor, and Claudius II sentenced St. Valentine to a particularly brutal death. Where
I would like to point out, it takes some serious pair on you to try and convert somebody as he's trying to kill you.
Yes. So, the execution took place in stages. Where first he was beaten with clubs, and then he was finally killed by decapitation.
They should have beaten him with sloppy beast flails.
Right? Something happened. Oh, snap. I realized that is the song request thing on. Let me not do that. Let me stop that here. It should be off. Apologize for that, guys. I had song requests on before. Thanks for showing me that was going on. Okay, so he was then buried north of the city of Rome, and he was executed on February 14th. Meaning that a calibration of his martyrdom could ride right over the top of the non-Christian day of Lupercalia. So what's with the cards? Everybody might ask, right? Like, why do we have cards on Valentine's Day? Well, during his imprisonment, Valentine penned a letter on his second arrest to Judge Asterius's formerly blind daughter, whom St. Valentine had healed. At the end of the letter, he signed, "From your Valentine." This act is the humble root of a practice that is still carried on today, giving Valentine's Day cards, often signed, "From your Valentine." But then he died, so yeah, context is a bitch.
Right.
Yeah. Just a bit.
So something to
So
pay
basically,
attention to.
when you send somebody a Valentine's Day card, what you're saying is, I'm gonna be dead in a week.
Right. We Rat Goat says the bacteria that causes the Black Plague can be cured pretty easily, so if caught soon enough. So hashtag worth the
Modern
risk.
medicine is dope.
Right. All right. We're going to move on from the origin of Valentine's Day. We're going to talk about some things that has to do with Valentine's Day, like Cupid, the fucked up tale of the creepy angel thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people were asking about it, right?
I wasn't.
No, I mean in
Don't
the
put this
world,
on me.
right?
I blame you, Tom.
So
It's your fault.
let's talk about Cupid, the winged bearer of bow and arrows that prick the hearts of the unsuspecting to make them fall in love. What
a
the
dick.
hell is going on with this tiny baby and his date rapey assault on Valentine's Day? Where does he come from? What the fuck is going on? You know, all
Where
the
did he
simple
go?
questions, right?
Where did he come from, Cotton Eye Joe?
Damn it. No.
Tom, this is your fault
Right.
again.
Here's another quick fun
Okay,
fact
I'll own this
for all
one.
you guys. It's really hard to find images that do not contain nudity when researching Cupid. The Google Images results for Cupid is basically nothing but porn, winged babies, and winged baby porn. So we're gonna expect a lot of like statues, like tasteful statues. That's gonna be a thing that we're looking at a lot here. So in classical mythology, Cupid is the god of desire, erotic love, attraction, and affection. Portrayed as the son of a love goddess, Venus, and the war god, Mars. His Greek counterpart was Eros, although Eros is generally portrayed as a slender man in classical Greek art. During the Hellenistic period, he was increasingly portrayed as one of these winged, chubby boys. And during this time, his iconography acquired the bow and arrow to represent his source of power. A person, or even a deity, who is shot by the Cupid's arrow is then filled with an uncontrollable desire. In myths, Cupid is a minor character who serves mostly to set the plot in motion of events. And he's the main character only in the tale of Cupid and Psyche, when he was wounded by his own weapon, he fell in love with Psyche. And there are many poems and ballads and stories about Cupid, but what we're going to look at right here is the etymology of his names and the origins of his character. There's a lot of stuff about Cupid doing stuff, and almost none of them have anything to do with Valentine's Day. Like, he just got lumped in to Valentine's Day. It's no secret that the mythology builds around other mythology, right? Roman gods are mostly just renamed carbon copies of Greek gods. Like Cupid and Eros, Mercury is just Hermes 2.0, Venus is Aphrodite, Mars is Ares, so on and so forth. The story of Cupid and his mother is no exception. According to some ancient tales, Venus, the god of love, was besotted with Adonis, who shared a number of commonalities with Cupid and Eros. Both Adonis and Eros worship were brought to Greece from near the Near East, and the name Adonis is a
Derived?
It says derivation.
Oh, okay.
Derivation or derivative?
I think it's derivation.
Yeah, derivation.
I want to say my brain keeps trying to say derivative, but it's derivation of the Semitic word for Lord, and this is believed to have come from the Greek language of the title of Dumuzi, or in Hebrew, Tammuz, which is one of the most famous gods of Mesopotamia and Sumeria. So he goes back real far, right? You start getting Cupid-like stories and things happening in early Sumeria and Mesopotamian culture. This includes a story involving Tammuz, and this was the hardest thing I have ever researched for this history podcast, because I started running into Skeptalk shit. And so
awesome.
What I gathered is that the story of Tammuz involves a young boy with wings and a magic bow that makes people fall in love, using the bow on his own mother in order to get her to fall in love with him. And it gets real weird because it was Mesopotamia and Sumeria, so they hadn't really figured out society and stuff yet.
Right.
But
Oh!
yeah. But when you start researching this topic, warning. If you research past this point, beware. This point is where you will start to hit a crazy conspiracy wall, where you start when you start seeing Bible verses while researching the ancient Sumerian stuff. Turn back. You are deep in the rabbit hole. Head back to better sources and look for better info. I fell down some weird holes today. So I was working on this part for Cupid, and I realized that 4 hours had passed, and I only had 3 slides. And I was like,
my god!
What the fuck just happened? So I apologize. That's as much as I have for Cupid, because it starts to get weird. So the best piece of information I can give you about Cupid is it gets weird.
So
Cupid is fucking weird. The little wing chubby boy runs out. It's like, hey, you two, bang!
I'm going to admit it. I may be heading down a rabbit hole tonight.
Oh no.
This sounds interesting as fuck.
The phrase to search for is Cupid and Tammuz. Tammoz.
How about Cupid and Tammuz not porn?
Well, I mean, that wasn't the issue. The issue was the fact that I'm starting to run into these things, like old GeoCity web pages with like,
oh my god,
with like pentagrams and shit all over them, and like Bible verses just plastered all over, like they're trying to protect themselves from something. I don't know. Like, it got weird. So
it's so good.
I have plenty more information about Valentine's Day for everybody, though.
Dope.
Let's talk about the world and Valentine's Day. This holiday is not just celebrated in Western cultures, it has permeated many cultures across the world and morphed to fit those cultures. So, in Japan, women are the ones who are required to do something on Valentine's Day. They are required to give men in their lives, and this could be anybody, co-workers, bosses, neighbors, brothers, whatever. You give men in your lives a gift, and that gift is the popular gift Hanmei Koko. I'm pretty sure it might be Hanmei Choco. I might be wrong. I'm not exactly sure. I didn't find the exact pronunciation on this one, but which is a homemade chocolate. And if you like someone in particular, you give them small gifts along with the chocolate as well. Men are exactly what Andrew Wilson says is Hanmei, and then I don't know how to pronounce if it's Choco or Coco, right? That's the part, because it's spelled exactly like that, Hanmei. But the men are then required a month later to return the gesture on what's known as White Day, which is March 14th.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, looking at it, Udo, I'm pretty sure it is Choco, because the derivation is chocolate.
Oh, and Andrew Wilson is my senpai.
Right? I immediately trusted it, like when Andrew said it. So
he is my spiritual guide to all things Japan.
Right? So the men return the gesture on March 14th, known as White Day, and the men then give women white chocolate and other white gifts as a sign of affection. And White Day is a recent addition, though, beginning in 1978. So there is a huge tradition shift that occurred within a reasonable number of decades on an ancient holiday. They
look so happy.
Right? This is the Philippines, right? Hundreds of Filipino couples get married all at the same time on Valentine's Day. This is a popular tradition in the Philippines called Kasalong Bayan, or mass wedding ceremonies that need huge open spaces to accommodate the grooms and brides in one giant public ceremony.
That's kind of cool in some ways.
No one is happy to be there.
Yeah,
they all look
single
miserable,
smile.
though.
No smiles.
Like, if they all looked like happy and shit, be like, yay, we're getting married.
Middle of the screen, right underneath the red draped canopy, second row, that guy is livid pissed about something.
Yeah.
Yep.
They all just like, they're like, all right, we're getting married, great, let's just fucking be done.
Right,
fine,
exactly.
whatever.
God, again, another year, another marriage, right?
Third woman in from the right next to Udo's head, she's sleeping through it.
Yep. This one. Yep. All right. So Finland and Estonia celebrate Friends Day instead of Valentine's Day, which is a day for honoring both friends and significant others. Cards are given out just like we would do with Valentine's Day, but they're for anyone, from a best friend to a neighbor. February 14th is also a popular day to get engaged in both countries. And additionally, an interesting tradition for single people. In Estonia, you can take a ride on the love bus in hope of meeting someone special. So all like public buses and stuff turn into love buses, and people just ride around and hope to meet each other. It's like a weird traveling singles bar.
Right. I kind of like the after you saying it, I kind of like the way Finland does it. It's not just about
romance,
love. It's
right.
Yeah, romance.
Romantic
it's a good
love.
word for it.
Yeah, it's also about platonic love. Yeah, that's really chill.
Exactly. Start sending your bros Valentine's Day cards.
Hell yeah.
So, Valentine's Day is officially banned in Saudi Arabia. In the days before February 14th,
Surprising no one.
It is illegal to sell roses and love-themed greeting cards in the Desert Kingdom, where it's run by conservative Muslims, and they believe that the holiday promotes alcohol consumption and premarital sex.
How rude.
Although, all that's done has led to an underground market.
I was gonna say, Black Roses is now on the black market.
Right.
Oh my god. The Red Rose Black Market.
Right? for Valentine's Day cards, heart-shaped objects, and roses on an underground black market.
So just saying Red Rose Black Market would be a really good emo band name.
Yep. The customers place orders over the phone, and the gifts are secreted to the back of a hidden area in stores in case police inspect the retailers. Forget me not.
Too late. Already forgot you.
You didn't think that we'd have an episode called the Valentine's Day Fact Massacre without covering the Valentine's Day Massacre, did you?
I did not.
Wait, there was actually a Valentine's Day Massacre?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I legit did not know this. I learn stuff all the time here.
For those of you that thought that I was going to just not cover this, shame on you. You know me better than that. Cool piece of fact here. I learned this while starting to research for this. Al Capone's Chicago home is now up for sale as of today. It's only $109,000. It was foreclosed in 2018, and the real estate agent posted it again this morning. The house is a steal when you look at his previous sales of $225,000 and $450,000.
That's not a bad house.
Right? Yeah. Seems pretty good.
Be right back. I'm moving to Chicago.
Right? It's not a bad price at all. All right. So this will all be new for Tom, which is awesome. I'm excited to be able to teach. This won't be new for Tim, but I should have some facts for you that you may not have been covered if you have
I don't know a lot about the Valentines. I know the broad strokes. I don't know any of the details.
Excellent.
I'm guessing it had something to do with the mob in Chicago.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah!
The year was 1929. It was the end of the Roaring Twenties. The mobster Al Capone was far along in his criminal career. We will likely, in the future, do a deep dive into Al Capone and his criminal empire, right?
Also very interesting.
Right? But that is going to be a future episode. Here is what you need to know for this event. Al Capone was a gangster that, when you break it down to simple facts, got rich because of Prohibition, which ushered in the passage of the 18th Amendment in 1920 and had greatly increased the earnings of America's gangsters through bootlegging, which was the illegal manufacture and sale of alcohol. And
Actually,
go ahead.
I had a either great or great uncle who is pretty much the only rich person on my dad's side who got rich as hell bootlegging during Prohibition.
Oh yeah. That was the sports stars, or that's where you made all the money. Yeah. And illegal gambling and prostitution rings that would often be run out of illicit drinking establishments called speakeasies. Capone's income from these activities was estimated at around $60 million a year, and in 1927, his net income was $100 million.
Is that in modern dollars or then dollars?
Before inflation.
Holy fuck.
Right. Yeah. He was filthy rich. Just filthy rich.
For anybody who doesn't know, it's the ratio of $1920 to $2019. I just looked it up. It's about 1 to 12. So
right.
Like $1 in 1920 had about the purchasing power of $12 now.
Right. Which means he had about $1,200,000,000.
Yeah.
Or $1,200,000.
$1,200 mil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the word.
That's a crazy amount of money.
1.2 billion. There we go. So, over the years, Capone consolidated control over most of Chicago's crime rackets through simple means, which were ruthlessly gunning down his rivals.
I was going to say, kill the ever-loving fuck out of everyone who got in his way.
In 1924, authorities counted some 16 gang-related murders. This brand continued until 1929, reaching a record high of 64 murders in 1 year during that time. This is Chicago, just Chicago, and gang-related specifically. Federal authorities, including the Federal Bureau of Investigation, had much less jurisdiction than they have today, and did not include Chicago's gang-related activity. On February 14th, members of Al Scarface Capone's South Side Italian gang executed a plan to ambush the members of the Irish gangster George Bugs Moran North Side gang. Bugs was a rival gangster who ran his bootlegging operations out of a garage on the north side of Chicago. Gamer News Party says, thanks to this guy, I can't buy a Tommy gun from the Sears catalog anymore. Right. See, Moran had a background as a petty thief. He was stocky and powerfully built and didn't have a reputation for being the brightest crayon in the box. He was jealous of Al Capone and wanted to take over the south side of Chicago just as much as Capone wanted to take over the north side. 2 years before the massacre, the north side was controlled by Dion O'Banion, a man who was thought to have killed around 60 people during his reign, and O'Banion controlled one of the largest breweries in Chicago, nearly as large as Capone's. And the north side contained a prime selling market. People living in the north were somewhat richer than those on the south side.
And wanted to get drunk.
They also came from German and Irish backgrounds, making them
Really wanted to get drunk.
stereotypically.
As someone of German and Irish background, yeah.
Right? Making them stereotypically heavier drinkers. So it's easy to see why it was favorable for the ambitious Capone, who wanted to get his hands on the money that such a market could bring in.
Yeah.
Eventually, this rivalry was going to come to a head. And Valentine's Day would be that day. A bootlegger that was loyal to Capone drew in Moran and his gang to a warehouse under the pretense that they were going to be receiving a shipment of smuggled whiskey for the price that should have seemed too good to be true. But remember, Bugs was pretty dumb.
Right.
The delivery truck
They
was...
gambled on this dude.
Right, go ahead. No.
They gambled on this dude being an idiot, and it paid off.
I wouldn't even go so far as to say gambled on him being an idiot. Al Capone was all of his faults aside, he was a genius.
That's fair.
He knew exactly what he was doing at all times.
Right.
Somebody can be both terrible and a genius. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. The delivery was set for a red brick warehouse at 2122 North Clark Street in Chicago at 10:30 a.m. on Valentine's Day. Capone arranged to distance himself from the event that was going to transpire by spending time at his home in Miami while the heinous act was committed. So he took off. He wasn't anywhere around. Super good alibi.
Yeah.
That snowy morning, a group of Moran's men... I love the fact that Bugs Moran, who was notoriously dumb, his last name is basically moron. Anyway, every time I see it. So a group of Moran's men waited for Bugs at the warehouse. Among them were John May, an auto mechanic who was hired by Moran, Frank and Pete Gusenberg, who had previously tried to murder Machine Gun Jack McKern, who is one of the men who is going to commit this crime, James Clark, Moran's brother-in-law, and Reinhard Schwimmer, a young optometrist who was just hanging around for the thrill of sharing company with gangsters. That's a mistake.
Yep, don't fall in with the wrong crowd, boys.
Right? So, I mean, you've got a mechanic, a couple of gangsters, and an optometrist hanging out to pick up this whiskey deal. So, Moran was running a little bit late that morning, and when Moran's car turned the corner onto North Clark, he and the lackeys that were with him, Willie Marks and Ted Newberry, spotted a police wagon rolling up to the warehouse. Figuring that there was a bust happening, they decided that they were going to wait, right? They watched as 5 men, including 3 dressed in police officers' uniforms, entered the warehouse. With the arrival of the cops, Moran and company went to a nearby coffee shop and eventually left after warning one more member of their gang, Henry Gusenberg, another one of the Gusenberg trio, and finally, Willie Marks, another Northside gangster, who arrived latest of them all, saw the police out front and noped right the fuck out of there, and ducked into a doorway while jotting down the police car's license plate number before leaving the neighborhood. Now, this all would have just been a bust for Capone's gang, right? The men were really trying. The men that they were really trying to kill weren't there.
Right.
Fortunately for Bugs, and unfortunately for the men in that garage, Capone's lookouts likely mistook one of Moran's lieutenants for the mob boss himself. Probably this man. I had his name. Apparently it didn't get added into here. I don't know what happened. But he was wearing the same color overcoat and hat and had the same height and build. These two are pretty similar, especially if you don't really know him and you've never really met him, right?
Especially if they're wearing a hat.
Right. So, yeah. Note to self: if you ever become a crime lord, get a guy who looks just like you. And alternatively, if your boss is a crime lord, do not look like them.
Was it Frank Gusenberg?
No, I don't remember. I'd have to look.
All right, I did a little digging.
Right. I had the name earlier. I don't know why. Yeah. So on to the brutal part, right? This is the real thing that happened. This right here is the wall that Gamer News Party was saying that he had visited. The police officers then ordered the men to line up against the wall, acting like this was a bust. It was normal for gangsters to be in busts. This was, they would just be out in a few hours because they know that the police have almost no power in the gang-controlled streets of Chicago. So they did just that, calmly lining up against the brick wall. The police officers then signaled to the pair in civilian clothing, who then opened fire with 2 Thompson submachine guns, one with a 20-round box magazine and the other with a 50-round drum. They were very thorough, spraying their victims left and right, even continuing to fire after the 7 had hit the floor until they ran out of ammunition.
Jesus.
Right?
Were the cops like actual cops or people in
They were just
cop
guys
uniforms?
in cop uniforms.
Okay.
Right? So they were pinning this on the police. Right? So it would look like the guys in the civilian uniforms, after this was over, I don't know if I actually have this in any of the slides. I'll just skip past it if I do have this info. I can't believe if I didn't add it. I don't know why. But the cops led the 2 in civilian clothes out in handcuffs as if they had been arrested by the police. So it looks like the police came in, killed everybody, and arrested the survivors.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So, fun fact here. All but 100 of the bricks from the garage wall that we were just looking at, which the gangsters were lined up on and executed, is now on display at the Mob Museum in Las Vegas. A step up from the previous engagement in a nightclub men room in Vancouver, right? Another 100 of the bricks were sold to gangster buffs over the internet.
Huh.
Yep. I think it'd be pretty cool to have a brick from the Valentine's Day Massacre, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not one for curios, much for too many curios in my life, but I would totally have a brick. Like,
Yeah.
John May, one of the men who was killed, was known to always be carrying a case in his back pocket that held a medal of a saint inside of it. I couldn't find what medal it was, or what saint specifically, but they said that it was a medal of a saint. At that point, right after they had done firing, that medal was hit by a bullet, and it would have saved his life. However,
if he hadn't been hit by 20 other bullets.
Nope. At that moment, had the police and everybody just left, he'd have made it. He was hit in some rather unimportant parts, right? However, the killers made absolutely sure that there were no survivors. When they found him still breathing, one of the police finished him off, point blank, with a shotgun.
Is that guy in the top right the Bugs Moran lookalike?
I believe that's supposed to be John May. Ooh,
Okay.
I don't... Yeah, they should be in order.
Okay.
Oh, that I'm going to be reading here.
I'm trying to... It's driving me crazy I don't have that guy's name.
Yeah.
It's fine.
John May was 39 years old when he died. Frank Gusenberg was 37. Peter Gusenberg was 40. Clark was 42. Hayer was 40. And Weinshank was the youngest at 35. Would be the second to last one here. They were all considered to be middle-aged for gangsters, right?
Yeah.
These are the pictures of the victims. So, as you guys can see, these are the people who died on the Valentine's Day Massacre. Interestingly enough, the killers missed other living members of the North Side Gang on their second inspection of the bodies. After finishing May off with a shotgun, they panicked and fled. The only two survivors were gang members Frank Gusenberg, who died 3 hours later at the hospital after telling the police, full of bullet holes, bleeding from everywhere, "Ain't nobody shot me."
What? Really?
Yeah, gangster code, man.
The gangster
You don't
code.
stand.
Oh my...
They can't tell if whether or not he was scared that he might survive and be murdered again, or if he was keeping the gangster code. But he did not squeal. And a German shepherd named Highball, who was miraculously unscathed.
All the goddamn puppies.
Right?
Bastard.
And Highball wasn't going to talk either.
Who sent you? Bracky.
10% of your power. So, despite an exhaustive investigation, no one was ever convicted of these murders.
Holy crap.
Although Al Capone and his men got away scot-free for the massacre, it did cause a bit of a problem. Alarmed by the increase in mob-related violent crime that accumulated in 64 related murders that year, the public put an increasing pressure on law enforcement to put an end to the violence. Capone was then labeled public enemy number 1 and became the target of multiple federal investigations, which ultimately landed him in the slammer multiple times.
Yeah.
Yep. Federal authorities began investigating Capone after he failed to appear before a federal grand jury and being subpoenaed in March of 1929. When he finally appeared and testified, federal agents arrested him for contempt of court. Capone was released on bond, only to be arrested in Philadelphia that May on charges of concealed weapons. Capone served 9 months in prison and was then released for good behavior. There is a lot more to Capone's story, but that will have to wait for another episode. And that was Valentine's Day, everybody.
Hopefully the Capone episode doesn't involve squishy beast flails.
Right, exactly. Squishy beast flails. Like, I had to tweet out the fact that I wrote that last night, right? Like, I was just... all right. I'm going to tell you guys about...
real quick.
Go ahead.
Real quick, in response to Andrew Wilson, the fact wasn't that he didn't pay his taxes, that he got hit for tax evasion. I'm pretty sure it's that he couldn't account for all of the money he had because he made most of it illegally. You can't claim illegal income on taxes, you're admitting to crime.
So, I mean, we'll learn. We'll learn about that when we do a deep dive on Al Capone, which will happen.
Hell
It's
yeah.
on my big ass list of history, right?
Right.
But can you guys take even a slight guess at what we're doing tomorrow? Or not tomorrow, but next week?
Al Capone?
No, not quite. It was
Okay.
teased somehow. It was teased if people are paying attention.
Nope.
It's Big Ben Franklin.
Oh, fuck yeah!
Wait, how is that teased? Because of money?
If you look at the brand new logo and icon that I released.
Oh my god, I even DM'd you about that, saying, yeah, it's JPJ, and the Emus, and Wojciech, and Ben motherfucking Franklin.
I just thought he was on there because he was friends with JPJ.
Well, because Ben Franklin's the best. I mean, of course we're doing a Franklin episode. He was so cool.
For those of you who haven't seen it yet, we actually have an official, podcast seal now.
It's so good!
I'm going to share it with you guys real quick. It should be pinned to my Twitter. Come on, go to it. Here we go. Copy the image. Oh, of course, that's the old one. Fuck that. Never mind. Well, here's the old one. It's I made this just slightly better. So... Oh, apparently it's not pasting. Fuck it. All right, never mind. If you go to my
Good
Twitter...
try, though.
If you go to my Twitter, it's the pinned Twitter there. So,
What is your Twitter?
Twitter at Skep Talk Live.
Alright.
Yep.
There we go, got it.
Right, yeah.
I forgot.
Right. But yeah, so
I posted it.
that is what we will be taking a look at here in the future. So once again, everybody, thank you guys for joining us. I'm gonna run the outro, and then we'll be back for a little bit of a post show. It's Tim, Tom. Thank you guys for being here again.
Hell yeah.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah.